I'm very excited for this series of StarCraft 2. So what I've got for you today is the finals of this week's ESL Open Cup for the European server. Now, Clem, normally he's in the grand finals. Normally he's the one taking on MaxPax, who's going to be our first player here in the bottom left-hand corner of Dynasty. But Clem is currently over in Korea. I thought that this Zerg player was also over in Korea. Maybe he still is, but at the very least he decided to participate in a European event. So I think it's safe to assume that he has made his way back home. Playing with the blue Zerg drones in this best of 5 series, we have none other than Reynor. Reynor going up against MaxPax, and game number 1 is Dynasty. Apparently our Zerg player is going to start off this series by building a 15 hatch over at the Golden Minerals. Now, in my mind, this should be an absolute banger. We all know very well, right, that MaxPax is ridiculously good when it comes to playing against Clem. He is very strong in general, but there's a couple of players that he doesn't face all too frequently because he doesn't really play in offline tournaments ever. Players like Reynor rarely sign up for cups like these. Players like Cyril, he doesn't really face them all too often. So even though MaxPax has got very strong PvZ, I feel like he doesn't get tested as much in that particular matchup. He's playing, for example, Clem all the time. He's obviously playing against a lot of the Koreans all the time as well. And for example, the ESL Open Cup America. Did he actually not see that? No, he didn't go quite far enough. But I think he knows. Yeah. He saw the timing here. Let me actually just turn on my health bars real quick. He saw the timing right there of that spawning pool, so he still knows exactly what he's playing against. Now he sees the drone transfer too, so even though I didn't actually see the hatchery building over there, I would have liked to see the probe scoot forward ever so slightly. It doesn't really matter here for Max, because he already has seen the information that he absolutely needs. I hope this series is going to deliver. Now, people have recommended this match to me, this particular best of 5. So I'm assuming that this series is going to have some substance as well, you know? Generally speaking, of course, MaxPax is a very aggressive player, especially against Terran, especially against Clem. Is he going to be able to do something similar as well against Reynor? Generally speaking, in the early game, of course, of PvZ, it is the Protoss player's task to try and slow down the Zerg. Because of that larva mechanic, Zerg can just produce so many workers so very quickly. It can sometimes be a little bit difficult to go up against a Zerg player, and yeah, you need to try and slow them down. Now already, Reynor has managed to get away with quite a bit of greed. Not only does he get the rich golden base over here, he also gets, of course, that rich Vespian geyser. This returns 8 gas a trip rather than a conventional 4. The golden minerals, they return 7 a trip rather than a conventional 5. So that gas geyser in particular is incredibly potent. Reynor did delay the gases in the main base, or he skipped them for now. He'll get him in a moment, I'm sure, but it is a delayed Zergling speed opener here with a very quick gold base. Certainly something that is going to require a bit of critical thinking right here for MaxPax, because everything you do from here is going to be timed differently. Like, you can play your normal game, but this is not a normal opener for Zerg. So all of the defenses that you normally expect, everything is going to be slightly quicker. At this point, though, the Zerg is very disconnected. It's going to be quite difficult to get those queens together, but very nice movement here by the Zerg. Is he going to get any drones? At this rate, he won't. Now, an Oracle, it will be coming across. There it is. 2 adepts do make their way to the back of the main. Oh, Evo chamber block. Okay. So Reynor has recently been in Korea, right? He's been putting in a lot of work. We haven't really seen him compete in as many tournaments, but he's been preparing for the World Cup. Now, lovely movement here by MaxPax, distracting that queen group. And ultimately, that's still a significant amount of workers going down. Like, I think in Reynor's mind, this is one of those series that he should win. Even though MaxPax is not going to be at the World Cup, because he decided to decline his invitation, because he's MaxPax. We don't really know. I still think in Reynor's mind, he's been practicing hard, he's been putting in a lot of work. He won the Gamers 8 tournament, which this year turned into the World Cup. He won that last year. Not a lot of people are necessarily calling him the favorite right now, because of the performance, I guess, in offline tournaments so far in 2024. I think Reynor's been practicing hard, and we'll see how it goes. Then again, though, MaxPax is insanely good. good bit of damage here. 9 workers for 2 adepts. Like, that trap with the Evo chamber was nice in the back of the main mineral line. But other than that, MaxPax has been all over Reynor here in game number 1. He's only got 36 drones remaining right now, which really isn't enough. What are we gonna do? What's the plan? Yeah, he's making workers. Okay, straight Hydra then it is. Reynor could decide to turtle up. But him trying to get away with his greed, it's been decent, but certainly not amazing. And we are now at that stage where Protoss is taking over as far as the income advantage goes. I think for most of the non-Korean Protoss opponents that Reynor would be facing off against at the EWC, I think there's Showtime and Estrella. Am I missing anybody else? I don't think so. There's a lot of really strong Koreans, though, and they all play the game a little bit differently, right? So, yeah, even though, of course, playing against MaxPax is great practice, he does not play exactly like Hero does. He certainly does not play like, for example, Showtime either. Lurker Den is coming. This is Lurkers at Laratech, though. No Hive, no Infestation Pit either. That means that Reynor is really feeling the pressure here. He's trying to see if he can make that transition, but Lurkers without their late game upgrades are pretty terrible. And look at this. MaxPax with the proxy pylons going up on the other side of the map. MaxPax is so happy with how his early game has gone that he wants to try and close it out right here, right now. He is absolutely shutting down Reynor in every way so far. Stasis wards are being set up. He is playing the multiple groups here as well, the disconnect between these bases. This stasis ward is going to make it difficult for those reinforcing Hydras and Zerglings to make it over here. Half of them are currently sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing. At least one stasis will be cancelled, but the Zerg army is just not big enough. Honestly, at this point, I think Reynor is as good as dead, because his eco is not significant enough to really stay up here with what Protoss is producing. That's why he's making those Laratech Lurkers to just try and hope that he can get it done. Keep in mind, though, that the Revelation spell of these Oracles, they will also reveal any burrowed units. And obviously, these are just, yeah, not nearly as strong. Look at that. He doesn't care. He knows that these are not late-game units. Sometimes Protoss players, a little bit below MaxPax's level, they would maybe be scared of Lurkers right now. But we're 7.5 minutes in. There is no way that those have their Hive Tech upgrades, and even though they're getting decent traits, this Protoss army is just about to get a whole lot better. Charge is going to finish up. If those Stalkers have something ahead of themselves to tank, life is going to be really comfortable. Even another Nexus starts up. I don't think MaxPax needs this Nexus. He's playing 4-base Protoss against 3-base Zerg while being the aggressor. That is not the norm. Yep. And this is what happens when you have a good early game as Protoss. The follow-up mid-game pushes are just so incredibly strong. GG. Game number 2. We find ourselves on the map Crimson Court. Now that has got to be a nice little confidence boost for the Protoss player from Denmark. Because he just murdered Reynor. Like, that wasn't even close. Other than the 2 adepts in the main base, right? MaxPax may have been able to prevent it, but the thing is, he decided to send those adepts really deep into the main in the first place. Like, they weren't meant to make their way out of there. But if I have to be very critical, that's honestly the only thing that didn't go, well, perfect for him. Maybe some of the mid-game micro could have been slightly improved on as well, but that was a stellar game right there from the Protoss player. Okay. Crimson Court is next. Once more, we have a rich Vespian Geyser. However, the expansion is pretty exposed. Most of the time when this expansion gets blocked, the natural, Zergs will opt to go for the 3rd base instead. Reynor is now gone for the forward expansion. Once again, a little bit risky, but there is an advantage to this base that is sometimes quite nice if Protoss decides to take one of these 2 bases, either the one in the middle as well or the one over here as their 3rd. You can very easily execute a Queen March, because units that move from here can show up on the other side of the map very rapidly, if Protoss decides to expand. I would imagine that MaxPax, though, knows that very well. He's likely going to mine out these mineral fields and then take the third over here in a few minutes from now. But we'll see. We will see. I'm very curious as to Serral's form right now. Again, if you're out of the loop, Serral currently in the military. They have a military service in Finland. And even though he is gonna very likely get time away from the military for those massive events, nobody really knows exactly how good he is. Well, maybe some of, like, maybe these two players, right? If they're playing ladder games in the evening or maybe customs, I don't know. They will probably still see some of his matches, but I haven't seen a Serral game since the ESL Masters Spring Tournament. He looked incredibly dominant then, but obviously it's been a little bit. Oh. Apparently we had a tiny little pause. The 1 second pause. That's from music, isn't it? I always assume that we have a playlist running in the background. You gotta switch it up sometimes. Going from your classical music to, I don't know, Italian gangster rap. Reynor once upon a time released his playlist. There was a lot of Italian rap music in there. I tried listening to some of it. Wasn't my jam. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Was not my jam. Ooh, nice movement here, though, by Reynor. I don't actually know who Serral's Zerg versus Protoss practice partner is. Yeah. Oliveira mentioned that he's been playing a lot against Serral, and they've been practicing quite a bit. I would not be surprised, actually, if MaxPax is Serral's practice partner. Because that previous game was incredibly well done, and I don't really know exactly who MaxPax would be getting that level of practice against. Yeah, maybe Showtime? Showtime would certainly also be... Yeah, Protoss players just play the game so differently, right? The way that Terran versus Zerg works is very different than Zerg versus Protoss. The Protoss players in general have a much more distinct style. Anyways, Reynor now going for a spawning pool into a nice and early Roach Warren. Twilight Council. Nothing all too surprising here for Max. Okay. So interestingly enough, by the way, MaxPax does decide to go for this base right over here. I don't know if I love it, if I'm being honest with you. Because a queen push in that direction is so fast. Like, they're basically neighbors. This tumor moving forward, even just Roach Ravager attacks, they're gonna hit significantly harder. But MaxPax is saying, yo, you wanna fight? Let's dance, buddy. Let's see how it goes. This early game, by the way, not nearly as good for MaxPax as the previous one. Since the queens can actually help each other out, life is a little bit easier here for Reynor, who's now gonna start putting on a bit of pressure. If he can get the council on this base, that would be massive. He's only at 44 workers, though, which is just enough for 2-base saturation. Oracle forced to use its ability defensively as well. Doesn't have a whole lot of energy anymore. Battery overcharge is gonna be used, but the shield battery immediately gets picked off. I don't think this is enough Zerg, though, to kill the base. So even though these skirmishes are nice and all, and even though we are seeing some good micro from both sides, Reynor had to sacrifice quite a bit of his economy to pull that off. And MaxPax will be quite happy about that whole situation. Now we have some significant droning on the back of it, though. He's gonna continue working on that mineral line in the natural. Oracle will scout the timing of the 4th base. We only had a single Oracle mate this game, by the way, which is a little funky. That's one of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of worker kills. Gets 2 of them over here. I think the other 2 kills on this Oracle are actually Ravagers, which is not a bad trait. Maybe 1 Ravager and a Zergling or something, but... Anyways, there's the Baneling Nest. So we're actually gonna go melee upgrades here together with a Baneling Nest. I think this is Reynor going Roach, Ravager, Ling, Bane. That's what it's looking like over here. A pretty uncommon strat at, well, this point in the meta. This was very popular until the Baneling got nerfed at the end of last year. Or when was this? It's been a little while already. It's been some time. These days, especially with this timing of the Evo Chamber, this was a relatively late Evo Chamber. It would pretty much always be an Evolution Chamber into a missile upgrade. But yeah, it is indeed Baneling speed. So I think this is a reaction from Reynor. Not bad. Now the Baneling nerfs, they were not the most recent balance patch, but the patch before that. It's been a little while. Okay. MaxPax. Not really prepared against Banelings at this point in time, but I honestly don't know if he minds. Because one of the nice things about Banelings is that if there is a lot of chaos, then suddenly, right, it can be a real issue. Mineral lines are exposed, you don't pay attention, because as the Protoss, you are so focused on controlling your Stalkers here. But with this current setup, it's really only the third that is exposed. There's not really that many locations where these Banelings can be a huge issue. Reynor is essentially putting all of his eggs in this basket over here. He's hoping, praying that he's going to be able to roll in those Banes. Whilst the Protoss player is looking over here. So he's pushing at the front as well. Will the Banelings be able to achieve much? MaxPax sees it right now. Oh, okay. Well, so far, honestly, the Pro Pool has been good. Quite a few Banelings still survive, though. Yeah, and I think ultimately this is going to be worthwhile. Yep. A risky play from Reynor, but ultimately a calculated risk. He now decides to transition into the +2 melee as well. Third Nexus is going to fall. I think maybe MaxPax was a little overly ambitious. Taking that Nexus in that location, it just opens up so many opportunities for the Zerg to be aggressive. I don't think Reynor would have made that decision to go for this build if the third was taken over here in the more conventional location. At that point, it's a lot more difficult for the Zerg to find angles like that. Okay. Now, of course, it's not easy, though, for the Zerg to close out the game. MaxPax very, very strong when it comes to playing defensively. He actually decides to just take that expansion over here again, and MaxPax... Alright, I was just complimenting his defensive play. Has a bunch of Zerglings slipping through the cracks. Reinforcements in the main will at the very least help clean all of this up. This Zergling, ambitious plays, but also not achieving too much. In the meantime, though, we did have another Oracle. And the Oracles have just been clicked onto a bunch of drones. And a worker count here for the Zerg is just not something that MaxPax can really compete with. I mean, it's not amazing, don't get me wrong. 57 workers is nothing to write home about. You preferably play like this sort of army off of maybe like 30 workers more than where Reynor is currently at. But as long as you have, you know, maybe like 30 to 50% more eco than the Protoss, I guess it's fine. That being said, though, generally speaking, the longer that Ling Bane armies get played, the worse they become. Because their cost efficiency is not quite there. We have more Zerglings running into the main base. A couple in the natural as well, trying to be annoying. Good splits here, though, on those Stalkers. In the end, there's just way too much Zerg. GG is called, and Reynor wins game number 2. Yeah, it's funny how we can go from such a dominant game number 1 from MaxPax into a game where Zerg just looked an entire league above. So let's see, what can we do on Amphion? The score has been evened up. MaxPax tried to get a little bit tricky, going for a single Oracle into a cheeky base over at that third base high ground location. Maybe if we would have been able to slow down the Zerg economy in any way. Before that point, life would have been more manageable, but ultimately I think that first Baneling roll by, it just sealed the deal. You cannot really afford losing that many workers. It's also a bit of an ambitious play though from Reynor, because I feel like there's a very good chance that Protoss is going to see that fight coming in. Either they just have a little bit of vision on that side of the map and they can just see that there is a group of Banelings morphing in, right? Or you can micro and respond to that first wave of banelings a little bit more diligently, or you can maybe scout the baneling nest and the fact that it's upgrading. Maybe you can see that the +1 melee finished rather than the +1 missile. There are little bits of giveaway, I guess, that Zerg could have accidentally... Yeah. Little bits of information that the Zerg could have accidentally given to the Protoss that would have made that attack look a little silly as well. So I don't want to call it a desperation play from Reynor. I think it was a calculated decision, but it is something that is not going to work out necessarily every single time. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with that again in this particular game, for example. Like on this map, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Amphion it is. Reynor checking out what's going on. And you will see everything's very normal. MaxPax not one of those Protoss players that is putting their pylons in the wall off. We've seen many Protoss pros deal with that lately. Hero has been doing it, Estrella has been doing it, I've seen Classic do it. Like a bunch of the players for some reason are just putting their pylons in the wall off and then a second. Like it's a bit of a mess. MaxPax apparently subscribes to the normal style. The one that we see, well, that we have seen for many, many years. Pylon over here, structures in the front. The ones with much more HP. Even though it doesn't really matter all too much, I do think it's kind of fun to note. Statistically, by the way, MaxPax currently the #1 Protoss in the world. Although, of course, you do have to take the stats with a grain of salt. Because they do not include any offline tournament. None. Zero. Anyways, I can rant about that for hours. And I have. And I will. Maybe, no, okay. Not today. No, not today. Alrighty, so. Stargate is going to finish up. I'm assuming it'll be triple Oracle. I'm gonna go for a cheeky little mineral field mining over here, and that will ultimately allow him to build the third Nexus over here. So this is setting up as a game where Reynor is taking the right side of the map and MaxPax will likely be focused on the left. Let's see though how many workers he can kill in the early game, because that seems to be instrumental in the outcome of the game. If he gets a dozen, the follow-up attacks from Protoss seem to win the game. If he gets only 3, well then usually that means Zerg is a hit. I would say if it's anywhere between like 5 and 8, the game is relatively even. Obviously there's quite a few parameters though. Nah, he's gonna get quite a bit. Okay. Ooh. 6 workers here going down. And that's honestly a little bit sloppy, right? So I feel like that's too much damage for Reynor. Like this is the type of game that he will play against, the type of Protoss style that he will play against all day, every day. Like this is the gold standard of Protoss. Maybe MaxPax is just better at controlling those Adepts and those Oracles than the Protoss players he's been playing against lately. But the fact that Reynor is losing 6, 7 drones, I mean, there's more going down right now. This is too much damage. Like, that does not look very... Ay. That does not look very good here for the Italian Zerg. There's a lot of multitasking going on though for MaxPax. Now he's sneaking in again with 2 Adepts. Honestly, this is not good at all for Reynor. Lovely work by MaxPax. Obviously, he's the one creating those opportunities. But Cyril, at the most recent tournament he played, literally did not drop a map against Protoss. He did not lose a single game against Protoss. And the one theme we always see in Cyril's game now for years and years and years is that he rarely takes damage. Like his defense against Oracles and Adepts for some reason is a step ahead of everybody else. 14 workers? 14 workers is too many. Now this follow-up attack from MaxPax is likely going to hit quite hard. Now I have not paid attention to the exact macro here from the Protoss, so I'm assuming he didn't make any mistakes. Assuming he didn't make any mistakes, the follow-up attack is just gonna hit so hard. I also love, by the way, that MaxPax never really gives up those Oracles. We see Protoss players diving mineral lines and getting worker kills, similar to the amount that MaxPax is getting, but then usually they lose at least one of those Oracles. MaxPax pretty much always keeps them around. This is actually, like, low-key the most important unit in this matchup. The unsung hero of the Protoss. I would even consider them to be the best Protoss unit in the game. Do you think that's fair? Do you think Oracles are the best Protoss unit in the game? For years I gave that title to the War Prism, but... nowadays, it's at least the most critical unit. Okay, maybe Stalkers are slightly more critical. Yeah. Alrighty. +1 melee once again for Reynor. Lair once more coming up. The +1 melee is very curious. Very normal follow-up though from Max here once more. Who's already taking a 4th Nexus at the 9 o'clock position. And he's building a proxy gate. I think he's looking to deal some damage here on the left side of the map. Using that mineral wall to his advantage. Yeah, we're gonna use this as a location to back up to. There's a lot of Zerglings out, so maybe this is gonna be quite manageable here for Max, but he has decided to skip the Prism for now. Prism is gonna be moving on over to the right side. There's already a few Adepts hiding over here. Oracles are flying around, and the real threat here is gonna be those Stalkers. But there's a good chance that these Adepts can shade into the mineral line and get an additional 5 workers or so. Here's the Blink. It is an aggressive Blink though. Obviously Blink is on cooldown right now. I don't know if I love that Blink. Yeah. I'm almost wondering if you should pull a couple probes and mine out these mineral fields for them, but... anyways, here's those Adepts shading in. Stalkers once again blink across. Now we do have Stasis Wards, so that's the plan. Stasis Wards to make those Zergling jumps much harder to pull off. I actually really do like the combination of Stasis Wards together right here with the Stalkers. Adepts in the meantime shading around. I predicted 5 workers. Did I? I don't know. 20 workers so far have gone down though. And those Adepts did kill 5. I guess the +1 melee here is nice when it comes to the base defense. Look how much value those Oracles are getting, by the way, throughout the game. It's insane. Now finally the first one goes down. But I think the Oracles must be the one unit that just... like, they probably are like 4 or 5 times their resource worth here. He takes another base. Dude, when MaxPax deals damage in the early game, he feels unstoppable. He's just gobbling up everything now. Still though, Reynor's holding on. He's got 69 workers, that's quite nice. 68 now. But compared to the Protoss, it's not good enough. He is gonna have a decent amount of units. And he will be producing as much as he can here, but... there's the Baneling Nest. That Baneling Nest, I mean... Desperation Banelings can obviously work, don't get me wrong. He's gonna try and take a hatch over here in the top right at 2, but I mean, this is another one of those spots where Reynor's plan is to cross his fingers and hope that the base does not get spotted. It feels like there's a little bit too much of that in Reynor's games here so far. Okay. I think MaxPax has realized that he doesn't need to be this aggressive. Like, he is just poking with the units that he's got, but it's relatively defensive now. He's dancing on the edge of the creep, but he's not diving too deep anymore. He's going into the +2/+1 upgrades. And he's got 85 workers here, compared to the 67 of the Zerg. This is now the Protoss player Zerging the Zerg. Trading Banelings for Zealots, it's not what you want to be doing here. Dude, MaxPax is playing so good. That previous game was a bit experimental. Alright, this is apparently the final Hail Mary here for Reynor. This game has been going pretty terribly for him, but he's still alive. He's still got a decent army. Nidus network it is. It's been within vision range for MaxPax, but I don't know if he clicked the structure. I mean, we see these plays work. It's gonna be Swarm Host. We have Roach Ravager, Ling Bane Queen into Swarm Host. I don't disagree with him. I don't see how you can do anything else. But it's certainly a desperation play. The first wave of those Swarm Hosts will be absolutely pivotal. Zealot's going to town in the natural though. Zealot warping in the back of the third base too. Stalkers blink forward. He sees the wave. Locusts are used defensively, which is like the last thing that Reynor really wanted to be doing here. He's lower in supply while playing Roach Ravager Swarm Host than the Protoss player. This is still a game that MaxPax can throw. If this was me, I would be throwing it. I'm very good at throwing games. Okay, but MaxPax won't. GG. Okay, brilliant game by MaxPax. Honestly, if he plays like that, he makes Protoss look kind of broken. Like, I'm looking at that game, as well as the first map in this series, and I'm not entirely sure what Zerg should have even done. Well, I do know what Zerg should have done. The answer is pretty easy. Just don't make mistakes. Like, don't lose so many workers in the early game. Honestly, incredible, though. This is why a lot of people are saying MaxPax is the greatest Protoss player in the world right now. Offline tournaments or not. I don't really want to make statements like that, because it always creates a lot of debate. And a lot of arguments in general. Is somebody capable of being the greatest Protoss in the world if they don't prove it at offline tournaments? I don't know, man. All I can say is that when MaxPax plays like he did just now in game number 3, it looks pretty much unstoppable. Like, that was probably the best game of PvZ I've seen this year. Like, from the Protoss' point of view, you know? Like, if you're a fan of strategic Protoss gameplay and you enjoy watching near perfect execution, I think that's basically what it was. Like, that was the entire game plan that Protoss wanted to go for, going according to what, you know, the schedule was. That's exactly what he was hoping to do. Very impressive. Alrighty, now we find ourselves on Alcyone. A relatively normal map as well. I say as well. Amphion a little bit funky, I guess. Yeah, MaxPax doesn't play a very... So one problem I run into, right, uploading YouTube videos and stuff featuring MaxPax, is that MaxPax rarely does something exciting that you can put on the thumbnail or the title. So for example, it's kind of like the same problem as Clem. Like, Clem plays normal StarCraft really good. There's not a whole lot of clickbaiting you can do, you know? It's a weird thing. Like, sometimes I notice that the Clem and the MaxPax games don't necessarily get as many views as, for example, I don't know, any of the other players who, like, pull off weird tricks. But that's because they don't have to play weird tricks. They can just play normal StarCraft, and for some reason, they do it a little bit better than everybody else. Okay. Anyways, enough fanboying. It all comes down to the early game. Losing 20 drones to 3 oracles and like 7 adepts is about 16 drones too many. And it does worry me a little bit though for Reynor. Like, I think Reynor, he went over to Korea with the intention to, you know, basically go into the hyperbolic time chamber, right? To then appear after the Korea adventures and suddenly be twice as good at the game. I think that was the original game plan. Not quite seeing it here in these games. So, it'll be an Oracle opener once more. Am I being mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean. I'm just being very Dutch. Sometimes I'm so Dutch I turn into a bit of a jerk. Yeah, sometimes I can be a bit of a toxic commentator. Nah, it's just the fact of the matter. I think Reynor would agree with that too. If he plays like that, it's gonna be very difficult to win the World Cup. And that is just how it is. Maybe he's got some hidden power though. Maybe he still needs to go Super Saiyan. He needs to stand in front of the mirror. Wait until his hair goes blonde. And just shout really aggressively for about 20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, Dutch people are known to be very direct, right? I think that was a great example of being Dutch. Didn't mean to be a jerk, just wanted to be straight up. Maybe he needs to change his username back to Jack Frost. Like he played over the winter break. Maybe that's the plan. Okay. So. How good is the defense going to be this time around? We are 1 drone down, soon to be a second. Oh, no. You live? That surprises me. That drone was... Look at this guy. He's accepted death. One thing I really like from MaxPax's Oracle control is that they're always moving individually. Like, there's 2 control groups for Oracles right now, which is kind of neat. Okay, this is much better already for Reynor. He does lose a worker over here and a council on that base, but that is much more manageable. I don't know exactly where pro gamers currently cut the line when it comes to worker losses. Like, how many is acceptable in this matchup? Preferably, you lose none. 20 is too many, so the correct number is somewhere between 0 and 20. I would imagine probably like up to like 5-6 workers is acceptable. So Reynor getting away with less than that. It's really good. It also kind of depends on what Protoss does, right? If it's a single Oracle opener or like no adept follow-ups, the losses are a bit more acceptable. And honestly, in this particular situation right now, the one that Reynor is currently in, the defense has been on point. Yeah, lovely movement here with the queens. The defense here has been on point. This has been a committed push by MaxPax. Very similar looking to the previous ones. So what exactly is different? Like, this is what I'm trying to figure out, right? What exactly is different in this game compared to the previous one? How did we lose 20 drones up to this point or so? Maybe a little less than that at that point in the game. But like, how at 6.5 minutes into the game, in the previous match we had double digits of worker losses. And now in this match, Reynor has only lost a handful. This is the type of game you want to see Zerg play. But where is the consistency? Like, how do we ensure it? What is this, Maxi? Maxi going into a very fast storm upgrade. Okay. Lurker then coming up though, together with a hive. You'll love to see it. I think this gold base is likely gonna get denied. Yeah, it will get denied. But still, that's totally manageable right here for Reynor, because he has that worker count. It seems, by the way, that Reynor is going +1 missile in this match. I think it's due to the fact that this game has been going well. It seems like the matches where he's losing drones, he goes +1 melee. But in the games where things are a lot more comfortable, he can go up to a hive and he doesn't have to worry about a Protoss all-in. Or, really not an all-in, but I guess a timing attack from Protoss that is going to be hard to hold. In the games that are a little bit more comfortable, he tends to go +1 missile into now apparently also +2 missile. Yeah, maybe Reynor wants that underdog story. I think actually a lot of tournaments that Reynor has won historically, he wasn't necessarily the favorite going into it. Like somebody who nobody would be surprised to see win, right? But I think there have been a couple of tournaments in the past where Reynor wasn't necessarily the favorite going into it, and then he ends up being better than everybody else. I mean, the greatest underdog story we've ever had, obviously, is Oliveira winning Kijkwijzer. Ay, 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 ay. I don't think Reynor can ever get to that level because he's too good. This is also really nice. Oh, even gets the Warcraft 3 full surround right there on the Zealots. Okay, this is excellent. Really good game for Reynor. Now let's see, can he leverage this into a win now? Because this is kind of like the mirrored situation as the previous game, where MaxPax was really far ahead because he dealt a lot of damage. Now Reynor has basically taken no damage. He's done a bunch of damage to the Protoss. Can Reynor now leverage this into a win? let's see. This will also be MaxPax now, who needs to be playing defensively. Different situation. Not really one we've seen him in so much yet, other than the game on Crimson Court. Although that was a bit of a funky one because of the Protoss build. There's the Lurker then, the Lurkers. They will soon be joined with a Nidus Worm. It's Immortal Storm, by the way. Battery overcharge. The Queens even decide to show up. I don't think there's enough here for Max to hold on. There is a secondary Protoss squad, though. This is only a chunk of the Protoss army. Just a squad that is meant to be buying time. The main group of Protoss units just pushing back some of those units here. Reynor being very conservative with his positioning, but he is ultimately cutting off that mineral line here on the right side. Nidus Worm to bring those Lurkers home. I'm assuming we're gonna kill that base. Yeah, that base is certainly gonna go down. MaxPax is positioning his army, though, in a way that makes me think he's looking to collapse all over this army. Okay. Nidus Worm over here too. We will have a recall towards the main base. It's just the Immortals. They're gonna make short work of all of this. There's no detection currently here for the Protoss. He's been relying on oracles as far as that goes. Good stasis ward over there though on the right. Reynor looking for a Brute Lord transition as well here in the end. Spire is coming. Brute Lord Lurker is incredibly good against this ground-based Protoss army. This is the type of army that can beat Lurkers, straight up. Like, Lurkers are killable with Protoss ground, but Protoss ground cannot really deal with Brute Lords very effectively. So I'm assuming at least we are going to be seeing a Greater Spire here, Morphin. It would be a great play. A little bit expensive. Overall, though, you can tell here that Reynor is feeling a lot better. Fourth Nexus is going to restart once again. I do think Reynor could try and hold on to an empty portion of the map, but he doesn't want to take that chance. And this means actually that the Nexus will be reacquired relatively easily. Although, if he can kill this army, that would be huge. There's the Greater Spire coming up. There's another Protoss force, though, looming on the left. And this is Reynor slowly suffocating MaxPax. There's the fleet beacon. MaxPax realizes the journey that we are on. Manages to somehow slither around the map. And he snaked around and found the location where he can get across. No cancel on that base. A couple Lurkers have come home as well for the defense. Do we have a recall already available again? I don't think so. It was previously used against those Nidus Worms in the main. That hit squad will kill the base, but not much after that. Great instincts here, though, by Max. Has he seen the Greater Spire? He does not. He doesn't have vision of it, but he knows that it's coming. He has secured the base again, though. Even though this is still a very substantial advantage here for the for the Zerg, this is certainly not an unwinnable game for Protoss either. I love the army movement that MaxPax always does. This is some storm potential over here, yeah. The weather forecast. It's stormy. We're gonna need one over here too. Don't dip your toes into it. In the meantime, there's a Nidus Worm inside of the main base too. Max now in that weird situation because he's mostly... well, he's maxed out, right? It's difficult to warp in units when you're maxed. It's difficult when you are maxed as well, apparently. Anyways, there's the Mama Ship coming. Mama Ship, by the way, is the first tier 3 unit. Isn't that kind of cool? This is a unit that is historically considered to be one of the worst. And every time I see a StarCraft 2 tournament, according to everybody in the chat, it is also one of the worst units overall. Yet a lot of the top tier Protosses are rushing it out these days. Well, quote-unquote rushing it. Just the opportunity to be able to recall, right? And cloak and everything is really nice. It's a powerful tool. For 300-300, it's a lot more manageable than the 400-400 it once used to cost. And you know what? MaxPax is threatening to push. He's threatening scary attacks, but ultimately what he's really doing here is just posturing whilst going for a fifth. So he's shutting down the aggression in the main base quite nicely. And he's expanding all over. So what was previously Protoss stuck on 3 bases, Zerg with full map control, is now kind of looking a bit better here for Max. I still don't love this position, don't get me wrong. But the fact that MaxPax managed to like slither his way out of that contain is really lovely. Here's the recall. Recall towards this army, of course. That Protoss force has disappeared. There is a Roach Lurker attack, or a Hydra Lurker attack on the other side in the meantime. A couple of Spore Crawlers will push back the Mama ship for now. Recall can be used again, though. Are we going to use it to try and save the base? I wouldn't mind it. Although I think it actually just came off cooldown as I selected the Nexus. Max may just be giving up on it. He doesn't know where the Brute Lords are. Okay, now he sees them. Tempest are building. Specifically, of course, to try and deal with those brutes. MaxPax is an absolute menace, though, dude. Like, every Protoss player, I think, would have died by now. Like, that was a horrible situation. Dealt no damage with the early game. Stuck on 3 bases against, like, 5-base Zerg, who has Lurker tech that you can't really deal with, and who's going Brute Lords. These last couple minutes for Max have been impressive. But Reynor is still ahead, and he is still not giving up this advantage of him. 28 workers down right now. He's once more killing the expansions. This was looking a little bit dire for Reynor for just a moment, but he's once more reduced the Protoss economy to just 3 bases, and obviously now we're at the 16-minute mark. And 16 minutes means that the main base is out. Natural expansion is almost closed, and the third is not far behind either. One of the problems when you take those third bases super quickly is that they run out early as well. Okay, that means that I think MaxPax's best choice in this game is a bulldozer. Just a very large group of units, one death ball of an army. Try to see if you can win the game with it. Reynor's bank, though, is still looking huge. MaxPax does have the army size advantage at the very least, but how many Spore Crawlers are we on? Okay, it's 12 at this point in time. More of them are, finishing up right now. This is a great game right here by Reynor. And all of it comes down to that early game defense, right? Like, the fact that he can play a game like this is mostly a result of that early game defense against the Oracles and the Adepts. Where you're not forced to go into the +1 melee and just be on the back foot, but when you can take the 4th and the 5th base more comfortably. It makes the game a lot more manageable here for the top level Zergs. Mothership damage is so pathetic. Yeah, no, ambitious player by Max. But that was certainly an overextension. That Nidus Worm was also completely irrelevant. Anyways. A new one will start up. Another Mama ship will start up. That was a mothership moment right there. Yeah. Reynor tiptoeing around. You can see that he's respecting this army. He doesn't want to be caught off guard against a couple of Psionic Storms. I think the man's lost a lot of matches from this position, so you can see that he's playing it very safely. But ultimately, it'll be quite difficult, I think, for a player of Reynor's caliber to lose from this position. He would have to actively try. Like, again, I could manage it. I don't want to flex or anything, but I'm really good at throwing games with both Protoss and Zerg. MaxPax still has a maxed out army. Reynor's got a little bit of everything, though. He's got a good bank. He's got a good army. And that's the only thing that MaxPax has. He's got a good army, but no bank. Well, maybe in real life he's got bank. Yeah, judging by the fact that he's denying all these big tournaments that give you a lot of money just for showing up. Maybe his IRL bank is massive, you know? But in this game, his bank is insufficient. Abducting a couple units at a time. Yeah, he's trying to make the best of this, but okay, he does get the snipe on the Viper, but ultimately, that means that the fungal growth and the parabombs can connect. Making the best of a bad situation, though. No reaction here, because there's also a little bit of a play in the middle of the map. Oh, that was... Okay, I'm gonna have to back that up. Sorry, that was really hot. So there's a mothership over here that goes down, because it's a mothership. That's what it does. And then Reynor trapped the rest of these units with a Changeling force field. I really like that. He hold positioned on the Changelings to make it difficult for the Immortals to escape. Now Reynor is gonna try and see if he can at least throw a couple of units at the opponent. Ultralisk is maybe good for a counterattack. Reynor, by the way, one of the absolute fastest players in the game. Gotta take the APM counter with a grain of salt, but 704 is a good indication of what the man's capable of. Protoss once again has managed to get a 4th base up and going. But I think ultimately, yeah, this is going nowhere, right, for MaxPax. Ultimately, this is looking like it's going to fizzle out within a couple minutes from now. MaxPax knows it. Reynor knows it. Reynor apparently likes to see his victim squirm here a little bit. Make him suffer. No, I think it's because he's just respecting. Like, the amount of damage output in his Protoss army is significant. It's a lot of glass cannons, you know? A lot of just straight up damage that can absolutely destroy a Zerg army, if not controlled properly. There's no reason for Reynor to get aggressive. When you're ahead, you may as well try and see if you can get a little bit further ahead. And as long as the fights can take place on creep, life's pretty good. These are carriers that have the +3 air weapons done, so the interceptors, they deal maximum damage. He's still gonna, yeah, sneak out whatever he can. Another base did just finish up. I mean, if Reynor gives him too much time, there is a chance for MaxPax to get back into this. Here's another mothership coming up. The 4th one in this game. Minus 1200, minus 1200? Anyways. Okay, well, Reynor decides to commit. Or MaxPax rather decides to commit. While distracting a bunch of the Zerg units in the top left-hand corner. Okay, good bit of damage being done here. Yeah, Zerg at the highest level currently seems to suffer a little bit in the late game when it comes to closing out the game. Like, Zerg players just don't want to, like, move too far. Leaving the safety of the creep, right? It's a dangerous play. Blinding clouds over there were really good, though. Yeah, for Zerglings and Ultras. So these guys are great at counter-attacking, but usually, I guess attacking with the Brute Lords is kind of like a one-way trip. Like a one-way road. But he's using the Corruptors, the Brute Lords, and the Lurkers for base defense, whilst counter-attacking with Zerglings, Hydras, and Ultras. And I think it's working out brilliantly here. Yep, great game by Reynor. He got very far ahead by like minute 6. It's taken him until minute 23 to ultimately close it out. But that does mean that we're gonna go to game number 5. Okay, so final game for today. Site Delta. Let's see. MaxPax did not manage to get much damage done in the early game, and he was on the back foot ever since. He tried his very best to make that a good game. And it almost looked like he was going to be able to turn it around. But he simply struggled, grabbing and holding onto a 4th base. When that structure first fell for the very first time, that was the beginning of the end. Even though it took a very long time for Reynor to actually win the game from that position. I think Reynor played that out strategically. Very cleverly. Okay. I'm fully expecting we're once again gonna see a normal game here from Max. I want to kind of see like 8 worker kills now, you know? We've seen the extremes. Loads of worker kills in the early game, very few worker kills. What if we have like an, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8 worker kills or so, and then we play the game? I think that would be a nice little experiment. Good to see a little bit of late game ZVP like that, though. A lot of Zerg players have been avoiding it. But Reynor clearly comfortable playing that style of Zerg right now. Is this the best StarCraft 2 song, by the way? It might not be Terran 2 from Brood War. Still very nice. I always love casting ZVP with Terran music in the background. Always nice to get a little bit of Terran music. Okay. So, Cybercore is done. We're going to cancel the upgrade. We're going to go Stargate inside of the main base. I'm going to do a magic trick. He's going to go for an Adept. First one is going to get pushed out. Oracle is going to start up. And we're going to go back to regular game speed. Third Nexus should start up. About 350, 345. There's a nice little Zergling run by over here. Actually, I quite like the commitment to this number of Zerglings at this point. Even though it doesn't necessarily delay the base for very long, it is forcing that Oracle to stay at home. Now the Adepts have gone across, so either you keep the Oracle at home or the Adepts. When both of those groups are on the other side, though, the worker losses just sort of get piled on. 2 drone kills for 2 Adepts, very manageable. And now we're at 4 minutes and 15 seconds. That's actually quite late for a third Nexus. So this is Reynor adjusting to the series. Always have a sufficient amount of Zerglings out on the map, apparently, to try and be a nuisance. It turns out the best defense is the offense, because it's keeping those Oracles off of his back. Okay. Defensive Spore Crawlers coming up. Ooh, it's gonna be Glaives. Okay. So this is Max actually mixing it up a little bit. Mixed packs. Max mixed? I don't know. Anyways, he's gonna go for a Glaive to Depth Opener. Koreans are a big fan of this. I feel like we don't see it all too often on the European server. But it is something that can certainly pack a punch. So, problem I guess here for MaxPax, or problem, he doesn't have a robo facility. So it's not like this is going to be a super committed attack, like an all-in. He's not going to be able to quickly reinforce. His reinforcements are going to have to come from the third base. But this is the type of opener that needs to deal some sort of damage. I don't think you can really just go for this opener and just sit with a bunch of Adepts and then have the Adepts in the mid-game. Like, Adepts kind of suck the longer the game goes on. We have 10 of them right now. It is a commitment into Glaives. Obviously, that means it's coming at the place of Blink right now. And that needs to be justified. About a 40% attack speed increase right now for the Adepts. Basically, Stimpak for Adepts. Let's see. Nice wall-in. That's a full wall-in over there on the high ground. They can kill structures, of course, but I think this is already... Oh, this is really good, actually. For the Zerg. Yeah, this is what Serral does. Serral does a lot of these plays with wall-ins like that. He's gonna shade on over to the third. Drones can sneak behind it. Spore Crawler is gonna re-burrow. And so far, it is basically no worker losses yet. Now, it is a lot of lost mining time though. And in the meantime, Reynor is not really getting a ton of income, right? MaxPax is also gone for, well, just good old worker production on the other side. He's actually gonna follow this push up, so it's a 4-gate Glaive Adept opener here. He's gonna follow this up with what seems to be an 8-gate all-in. So MaxPax actually mixing it up a little bit here. He does hit a bit of a supply block. He hits it as the Robo is supposed to be producing a Prism. The entire attack will pivot on the Prism upgrade, but since he's still researching the Blink research, I think it's okay. This scout here by Reynor is also pretty good. The one thing though that he hasn't quite seen yet is the lack, so he's trying to hide the sentries. He hasn't seen the lack of a 4th base. There's 2 4th base options on this map. I would love to see a Zergling run on over towards those locations. Either that or maybe this is just a clear indicator for Reynor, regardless of what's going on, that he needs to make just a whole load of units. Because here comes MaxPax. Here comes MaxPax. Here comes MaxPax. Still has a bunch of those adepts around. Kind of fun. There's only one immortal. A Robo Bay on the back of this as well. So he'll probably go into either Colossi or Disruptors. Couple adepts on the left side of the map as well. Maybe the main squad of units won't be able to achieve much, but if they can create a distraction for these adepts to just walk into the base, I guess that works. Good set of force fields over here though, and he's slicing off quite a few of those roaches. 4 drones have gone down so far. Adepts are on hold position. MaxPax currently very focused on trying to micro this army primarily. He is now building a nexus as well at the 6 o'clock position at the far bottom of the map. Reynor is still desperately trying to hold on to this base. +1 missiles is going to finish up. And this is an important defense though for Reynor. Like, imagine if those adepts, the first group of adepts that went across the map, or, well, not maybe the first group, but the ones with the glaives, right? Imagine they killed like 6 more workers. This would have probably resulted in a kill on this expansion. At which point, MaxPax finds himself in a really good spot. That's of course what he was hoping for. Now he's finding himself in a bit of an awkward position. I don't think this is necessarily a big disadvantage though, but the ball is in Reynor's court. And apparently what he's decided to go for is Ling Bane. So we're going Roach Ravager, Ling Bane here. It is the style that he managed to win with on Crimson Court, but that was a very different game overall. Neither player really went over like 60 drones or 60 workers in total. Already we are beyond that point. And generally speaking, Ling Bane does not trade well. Not cost efficiently anyways. So MaxPax, he'll probably be pretty happy playing against this style, but it is very hit or miss. There's the 38 Banes coming up. They do have +2 melee when they are done. I don't think he can really push in just yet. One problem here though for Max is that he doesn't have the ranged upgrade on the Colossi yet. So second Colossus is just about to spawn. But the extended thermal lens upgrade still needs to finish up, and Reynor is ready for a big attack. He's even brought Overlords right now to try and put down a little bit of creep. The Queens are coming across too. This is do or die right now for the Italian Zerg. Oh, he's trying to set up the biggest surround ever. Here we go. Does he have enough to overwhelm this Protoss ball? So far, those Banelings did not achieve much. Stasis Wards, though, also not achieving too much. A couple of the Banes will blow up the shield battery that was overcharged. Protoss army retreats in the direction of the natural expansion. Probes have already been running on over towards the 6 o'clock base as well. Colossi are taking damage, but again, that's a lot of Banelings for a whole lot of nothing. In the meantime, there was a counterattack too with these adepts. Lovely play there by MaxPax. The fact that he actually decided to warp in on the other side is kind of nuts, because he was in so much trouble there. But he killed 13 drones whilst losing only 10. So You know what? That's fine. That's totally fine for MaxPax. He needs a follow-up, Reynor that is. And Ling Bane doesn't really have a lot of follow-ups. Like the Ling Bane follow-up is more Ling Bane. The longer that this goes on, the easier it'll become for Max. But now obviously he's getting more and more upgrades. Charge is going to finish up. He's going into a Templar Archives, so eventually we'll probably see Archons. Reynor needs to deal more damage than he did just now with this wave. Zealots are going across once again. Couple of Lings and Banes. Zerglings run into the natural. This is gonna be a lot of distraction though, and that is exactly what Reynor is hoping for. That now means that the Banes at the bottom may be able to kill the base. 38 workers go down. Zealot run by over here being annoying. Zealot run by on the left side being annoying too. But Reynor just, with that Zergling run by, created so many distractions. Too many balls for MaxPax to juggle. And even though he was doing a good job defending in many angles, ultimately he lost 48 probes. He did deal a lot of damage on the other side too, but it looks like Reynor has managed to at least keep his expansions alive. Only 56 drones now remain here for the Zerg player, but that made this game heavily in favor of Reynor. He needed to deal damage though. And once more, the front door is wide open. I'm getting Hero flashbacks now. This is what Hero used to be doing a few months ago. It doesn't really seem to be caught like that very frequently anymore. Now the fourth base. Cool guys don't look at explosions. That Nexus kill was directed by Michael Bay. As the Ravagers decide to just run away, knowing that the corrosive balls would take care of it. Yeah, brilliant play. Really well done here by Reynor. He manages to get it done. I don't know if this is... Like, this is gonna trigger an all-in, right? I don't think this is enough for Protoss here to win the game. MaxPax, one final Hail Mary. Can we get it done? I don't think there's enough. Reynor's gonna make more of the same at home. He only has 59 workers, so it's really not that much. The Queens now obviously can be used as well. Oh, that's a lot of Banelings. Zealots though managed to run away. Reynor is not even close to maxing out, but he is getting a nice surround here. Those Colossi? No, those Banes are doing too much. Those Colossi are good, but ultimately they're the only thing left standing. That Stasis Ward is gonna have to get a lot. Not quite enough. In the meantime, there was also a Zergling run by, a push up north. 14 probes go down, 18 drones go down. Only 18 workers in total now remaining here for Max. Okay. I mean, it's good to... You know what? Maybe I shouldn't talk too early. I kind of feel like Reynor has got this one in the bag, but... The problem is... We have all the information, right? Like, we can see how much damage you've actually done with those Banelings. Reynor doesn't know the exact amount of workers that he's killed. So obviously he creates a lot of chaos. That's the entire plan. Try and hit the opponent at so many spots that you can maybe kill a couple of mineral lines worth with your Banes. But Reynor unlikely to know the exact worker kills that he got. So there's a good chance that Reynor right now is putting his opponent on a significantly higher worker count than he actually is. And that's gonna change his decision making right now. MaxPax, like with the way that he's maneuvering around his army, you would imagine that he's got a lot. Like he's being very aggressive. Deep onto creep. Spending his money like it's never gonna run out. That's one way, I guess, to solve that problem. Okay. These units are precious though. Queen's trying to get the kill. Nicely done here by Max once again, getting a lot of value. Couple of units here as well in the natural expansion. Zerglings are working on the pylon, but not quite getting it done. MaxPax still doubled in supply by the opponent, but... You can see that Reynor is... Yeah. Reynor is being very cautious. It's funny because ultimately he wins the series, right? But it's funny, he puts his eggs, all of them, in one basket several times. Right? Ling Bane run by here, Ling Bane run by there, but then when he gets ahead, he plays very cautiously. So we're going from full aggression, full risk-taking, into playing it as safely as he possibly can. It's kind of fun to see.